Here's something that seems like it shouldn't add up. More Canadians, more than ever, are counting on their home equity to fund their retirement. And at the same time, older Canadians are actually selling their homes less and less. Here in Guelph, Kitchener-Waterloo, you perhaps bought your home in the late 90s for, let's say, $175,000. It could easily be worth $700,000, $800,000 or more today. More wealth than ever is sitting inside homes like these, and fewer people are actually moving out of them. So how can both of those things be true at the same time? Well, here's what the research actually shows. In 2024, the survey of HOOP, the Healthcare of Ontario Pension Plan, found that 42% of Canadian homeowners now plan to use their home equity to fund their retirement. That's up 4% from the year before. And in the 55 to 64 age group, 40% are counting on their home equity for retirement. And that number jumped 6% in a single year. So more and more people are looking at their house and thinking, this is my retirement plan. And there's another piece of the data. The Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corp, or CMHC, tracks how often older Canadians actually sell. They report that the sale rate for Canadians over 75 is down 6% since the 90s. So we have a record number of people counting on home equity to fund retirement, and at the same time, older Canadians are selling their homes less than they were 30 years ago. That gap is what I want to talk to you about today, because there's something important happening here. Something that affects anyone in their 60s or 70s who owns a home and is thinking about what the next 10 or 20 years actually looks like. In this video, I'm going to walk you through what's driving this pattern, why Canadian tax law makes it harder to make a move than most people realize, and the 3 questions that are worth asking yourself now before life forces you to answer them under pressure. So stick around for them. They are worth the wait. Now, there's a name for what's happening here. Researchers and housing analysts have started calling it the equity fortress. And here's what that means. Canadian homeowners, especially those over 65, have built enormous wealth inside their homes over the past 30 years. But instead of using that wealth, most of them have drawn walls around it. The home becomes a fortress, something to protect them, something to hold on to, something they'll access if they absolutely have to. But most of them never quite get to the point of having to. You know, the 2025 Royal LePage Boomer Survey makes this tension very clear. Only 46% of near retirees plan to downsize, and 47% say they will not. That's a 50-50 split to downsize or not. And CARP, the Canadian Association of Retired Persons, has surveyed its members on this as well. 96% say they want to age in place. 96%. They want to stay in their home for as long as they possibly can. So why are people thinking this? Well, the Globe and Mail ran a piece documenting seniors staying in large family homes well into their 80s. Not always because they needed to, often because suitable alternatives weren't clear, and because the thought of leaving felt too big, too disruptive, too permanent. And the CMHC data ties it all together. Sale rates for seniors over 75 have been declining for 30 years, despite homes becoming more valuable than ever. So these are real questions people are posting online right now, in forums, in comment sections. Canadians in their 60s and 70s are trying to figure this out. Our kids grew up here and our grandkids love coming to visit. If we downsize to a condo, where does everyone sleep at Christmas? How do other families deal with this? Is it normal to feel like you're losing part of yourself when you sell the house you raised your family in? I did not expect to feel this way. We want to downsize, but neither of us can face going through 40 years of stuff. Has anyone actually done this? How do you start? And the last one is, we want to move closer to grandkids, but our whole social network is here in Guelph. How do people actually make this decision? So underneath all of that, there's a quiet awareness that none of this is getting easier. But still, the fortress stays up, because the home isn't just a building. It's where the kids grew up. It's proof of a life well built. And in Canada, it's also, and this part really matters, one of the most powerful tax shelters in the country. Now, here's the part that most people haven't fully thought through. And this is where Canada is genuinely different from anywhere else. You see, here in Canada, your principal residence is 100% exempt from capital gains tax. Not partially exempt, not exempt up to a limit, completely, fully exempt. So if you bought your home in Guelph in 1997 for, let's say, 170,000, and it's now worth 830,000, today that's a 660,000 in gains. So when you sell, you pay zero tax on that. Every single dollar goes to you. That is one of the most powerful financial advantages available to any Canadian. Most people know it exists, but they don't always understand what it means for their planning for their future. You know, in the United States, the capital gains exemption on a principal residence is actually capped. There are limits on how much gain a homeowner can shelter when they sell. So American homeowners who've had significant appreciation can face a real tax bill. For a couple, they have up to 500,000 in capital gains exempt for a primary residence they've lived in the last 2 of 5 years. That creates financial pressure to sell earlier, before too much appreciation builds up beyond the sheltered amount. Here in Canada, though, there's no cap, there's no pressure, there is no financial deadline. Every year you hold your home, every dollar it goes up is completely tax-free. This is why financial advisors sometimes describe the Canadian home as the most underused retirement asset in the country. It's sitting there, it's growing, it's sheltered from tax, and most clients aren't drawing from it at all. But here's what I want to be honest with you about. The instinct to hold is not irrational. It's actually quite logical. If you sell and move the money into a portfolio, that money is now exposed to market risk. Perhaps returns aren't guaranteed. Depending on how it grows, part of it could become taxable. It's no longer a clean, simple, tax-free store of value sitting in one place you know and understand. So if you hold, the home keeps appreciating tax-free with no deadline. For someone who's financially comfortable, the case for holding is very real. And the problem isn't the logic. The problem is this. If 42% of Canadians are counting on their home equity to fund their retirement, but 47% of near retirees say they won't downsize, there's a gap between the plan and the execution. And that gap matters. Here's what I know from working in this market. And this part is important. The research is clear on what eventually moves people out of their homes. And it's almost never financial plan. It's almost never a calculated decision made from a position of comfort. It's a life event. A health crisis, maybe a loss of a spouse, a fall maybe, a diagnosis that changes things, a moment where the home simply stops working for the life you're now living. And when those moments come, the move happens fast. Decisions get made under pressure. There isn't always time to look around thoughtfully or to prepare the home the way you'd want to, or to find the next place that actually fits your life properly. There's no time to think about what you want the next chapter to look like. You're reacting, not choosing. And that's really important. The people who navigate this transition well are almost always the one who started thinking about it before they actually had to. Not 2 weeks out, 2 years out, sometimes even 3 years out. They weren't necessarily ready to move, but they were willing to understand what their options looked like and plan for those options. And when the time came, they moved from a position of knowledge and choice, not shock and urgency. That difference matters. It affects what you sell for, and it affects what you buy next. It affects how you feel throughout the entire whole process of downsizing. So I want to take a minute and tell you what I do because it's directly relevant to everything I've been talking about. I work with people in Guelph, Kitchener-Waterloo, and Cambridge and surrounding area who are exactly in this position, this situation. Many of them are in their 60s and 70s and beyond, and they've been in their home 20, 25, sometimes 30 years, and they own outright or close to it, and they're trying to figure out what the next chapter actually looks like. So my focus isn't just the sale, it's the planning that happens before the sign goes on the lawn. That means helping people understand what their home is actually worth today, helping them see what they could net after the real costs of the move are accounted for, and helping them understand what their options actually look like in this market. Not assumed options, actual real options. A lot of people put off that conversation because they're not ready to move. But understanding your options doesn't mean you're committing to anything. It just means you're informed. And being informed early is what gives you choices later on. So if you're curious about any of this for your own situation, I'm happy to have a conversation. There's a link below to connect with me. Now, let me give you 3 questions that are worth sitting with, not to push you toward a decision, just to help you see your situation more clearly. The first question is this: what is your home actually for? This sounds simple, doesn't it? But it's actually worth answering honestly. Is the place you live day to day? Is it your emergency fund, the thing that protects you if something goes wrong? Is it the legacy you plan to leave your children? Or is it your retirement income, the asset you're counting on to fund the second half of your life? It can be more than one of these things. Most people's honest answer touches a few of them, but knowing which one is the most true, knowing which role your home is primarily playing in your thinking matters. And because it shapes what kind of plan you actually need. If your home is primarily your emergency fund, you want to make sure you understand how you actually access it when the moment comes. Not in theory, in practice. What would that look like? If your home is primarily a legacy to your children, that's a different set of questions. It means your financial planner needs to know that's the priority for you because it changes the advice they should be giving you. The second question: what would actually change if you had access to some of that equity? Be honest, not optimistic, practical. Would it let you travel the way you've been wanting to? Help a child or grandchild with a down payment? Renovate your current home so it actually works better for the next 10 or 15 years? Or honestly, would it change very little? You're managing fine. The equity is there and it's a comfort, but your day-to-day life doesn't feel pinched in any way. Both of those answers are completely legitimate, but they lead to very different timelines. If the honest answer is not that much, you don't have pressing financial reasons to act. You have the luxury of being patient. If the honest answer is actually yes, there may be a real quality of life question sitting just beneath the surface, and it's worth taking that seriously. Now, here's the third question: what would actually have to happen for you to move? This is the most important one, and I'd encourage you to sit with it and answer it honestly. Not what you hope will happen, what would actually has to happen? A health event, a change in your ability to manage the stairs or the yard, the upkeep of the home this size, or maybe it's the loss of a spouse, a doctor's recommendation maybe, or maybe your children becoming genuinely worried. Most people have an honest answer to this question. And when you say it out loud, you often realize that the thing you're waiting for isn't as unlikely as you'd like it to be. If there's a version of this transition where you're in control, where you choose the timing, where you prepare your home the way you want to, and also where you find the next place on your terms, that version is almost always better. Better financially, better emotionally, better for everyone in your family who's watching. So, what do I actually suggest? Start with your number. Get a proper market evaluation of what your home is worth right now. Not a rough guess, not something based on what your neighborhood sold for 4 years ago. A real assessment from someone who is actively working this market and knows the current data. A lot of people are carrying a number in their head that's 3 or 4 years out of date. Markets have shifted significantly during that time. So knowing the real current value of your home changes every conversation you can have. It changes with yourself, with your family, and with your financial planner. Second, understand what a move actually costs in Ontario. Moving here is not free. You're looking at provincial land transfer tax if you buy something, legal fees, moving costs, and real estate commissions. Those costs add up faster than most people expect. And knowing the real total before you run the numbers means you're not surprised later. So I did a YouTube video on this called The Hidden Costs of Downsizing. It goes over in detail the exact costs involved. And third, actually look at what's available. This is the thing that trips people up more than almost anything else. They assume they know what the options are. They picture a condo tower, or maybe it's a small version of what they have now. And they decide without really looking that it's not for them. But the range of housing in this area is broader than most people realize. Bungalows built for one level living, or bungalofts with space when you want it. Freehold townhomes where there's no condo board setting the rules. Or adult lifestyle communities designed specifically for this stage of life. Condo properties where the fee structure actually makes sense when you compare it honestly to what you're spending right now on a large home. You can't make a real decision based on assumed options. You need to see what's actually out there. And a lot of people are genuinely surprised when they do. And fourth, start the conversation before you actually need to. Please do this. I keep coming back to this because the research is confirming it. The biggest difference between a smooth transition and a stressful one is almost always timing. You know, this actually happened to my sister when she had a stroke. So you don't need to be ready to move. You just need to be willing to understand your situation. Start the conversation with someone you trust. Maybe it's a broker or your financial planner, or maybe it's someone in your family. Get the information while you have the time to take it in properly. The equity you've built over 20 or 30 years is real. It's yours. In Canada, it grows completely tax-free. It's one of the most powerful financial assets in this country. The question worth asking right now is whether you're the one deciding how and when to use it. See you in the next video.